Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a narrative that has literally shaped our moral compass for centuries. We're talking about the story of Pharaoh, also known as Pharaoh. But listen, we aren't just dusting off an ancient myth here. We're looking at a foundational blueprint for how absolute power actually corrupts. We're going to unpack a short but incredibly dense text that breaks down the anatomy of his pride, his oppression, and his ultimate dramatic fall. It's all about the inescapable consequences of unchecked power. Let's just jump right into it. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, I want you to ask yourself a question. What actually happens when absolute power meets absolute pride? Really think about that for a second. Our history is just packed with leaders who thought they were totally untouchable, right? Building these massive monuments to their own egos. Well, this specific source text gives us one of the most famous moral narratives on this exact dynamic. It's like a masterclass in arrogance. Let's see how this ancient, inevitable conflict is set up. The text kicks things off by describing Pharoah as a proud and powerful king. But here's the thing, he didn't just stop at having a massive army or endless wealth. The crucial detail here is that he literally claimed to be a god. I mean, just imagine the sheer level of arrogance it takes for a mortal guy to demand divine reverence from everyone around him. Psychologically speaking, when you claim to be a god, you're erasing all the boundaries. No limits, no rules, and most importantly, zero accountability. You answer to absolutely no one. And this unchecked pride, that's the spark that ignites everything else in the story. The narrative is laid out so concisely. It tells us that Allah sent Prophet Musa, peace be upon him, with a very specific purpose: to guide Pharaoh to the truth. Notice the phrasing there. It's really important. It doesn't say Musa was sent to just instantly destroy him or lay down some punishment right out of the gate. No, he was sent to guide him. It was a genuine opportunity. Despite Pharaoh's outrageous claims, he was basically being handed a lifeline, a chance to recognize the truth, step down off that pedestal, and actually change his ways. This creates such a striking contrast. On one side, you've got Prophet Musa, sent by Allah with a completely peaceful mission. He's not rolling up with a massive army, he's armed with a message of guidance. And on the flip side, you have Firoun, a guy holding all the earthly power you could possibly imagine. So how does he react to this guidance? Well, the text is crystal clear. He completely refused to believe it. He clung to his pride like a life raft, and he treated his people terribly. It's the ultimate showdown between divine guidance and deeply entrenched, arrogant, worldly power. So what exactly does ultimate arrogance look like when it's backed into a corner? It wasn't just Pharaoh sitting in his palace, quietly disagreeing. His internal pride actually exploded into real-world, devastating actions. He refused to believe, sure, but more importantly, he started treating people unfairly. His rule became defined by blatant injustice. And it escalated fast. He went from control to outright violence, actively chasing down Prophet Musa and the believers just because they wanted to leave. His ego literally wouldn't let them walk away in peace. He demanded absolute submission. And that brings us to the climax. The pacing here is rapid, almost cinematic. Imagine being completely trapped. Pharaoh is aggressively hunting down Prophet Musa and his followers, and they are pinned right against the sea. It looks like game over. But then, the text tells us Allah miraculously parts the water. The believers walk right through the impossible, completely safe. And Pharaoh, he's so blinded by his own massive ego that he just blindly marches his army right into that parted sea after them. And then, the water just closes right over him. In a matter of seconds, he goes from holding all the power in the world to absolute, devastating powerlessness. Let's just pause for a second and let the weight of that really sink in. The text explicitly says he drowned because of his arrogance and disbelief. It wasn't just a random act of nature that got him. He was literally consumed by his own refusal to accept reality. The physical drowning is just a direct manifestation of his moral failure. His pride, quite literally, pulled him under the water. When we look at the conclusion of the source text, it drops a very specific, vital word, zolm. This translates directly to oppression, cruelty, or unfair treatment. And the text makes it completely undeniable. It wasn't just his internal pride that took him down. It was how that pride made him treat other human beings. Oppression is the partner in crime to pride, and together they guaranteed his destruction. And honestly, this isn't just ancient history, right? We see this cycle today, whether it's in modern leadership, massive institutions, or even just daily life. Unchecked pride almost always leads to the unfair treatment of others. Which brings us straight to the ultimate moral of the text. Pride and oppression lead to destruction.
while those who trust Allah are protected. It's basically a timeless formula. Arrogance plus unfairness equals ruin. It is structurally impossible to sustain. But on the flip side, faith and trust give you ultimate protection, just like how those believers were saved when the sea parted. It's such a powerful reflection on human nature and the absolute, inescapable consequences of how we choose to use our power.
What a profound lesson to pull from such a concise text, right? We've just seen exactly how pride and oppression essentially dig their own grave. The oppressor ends up falling right into the trap they built for everyone else. I really hope this breakdown gave you a fresh perspective on this incredible narrative. If you want more of these fascinating deep dives into foundational texts, subscribe. Karen Zoha Inspires Co. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. The next time you see absolute power being thrown around with absolutely no accountability, ask yourself, is history just getting ready to repeat itself? Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.